Buju, Nindijnakas, Danita Macy. I am Gawaga, Biganagag, White Earth Nation, Anishinaabe, Ojibwe. And Buju, Anin Buju is how we say hello for us. Buju, yeah. Buju if I know you. So Anin if I'm like, hey. And I'm sorry, I talk a lot with my hands, so I don't know what's going to happen with this along the way. So I work for Oregon State University Extension Service. Thank you, I see you got my back. And I live over in Oregon in the Portland metro area. So for Extension Service, that's my area. I'm a statewide tribal liaison for the tribes that we have in Oregon. We have 9 federally recognized tribes, and then of course there's so many tribes that don't have federal recognition, right? But we're still who we are, whether we're recognized or not. So I'm going to talk to you today about 2 things, working with our Oregon Health Authority, and then also we also received funding for a NIFA grant as well. Next slide. Sorry, I'm trying to forward my own slides over here. Sorry. Sorry, so collaborative traditional food preservation with our tribes in Oregon. So the Oregon Health Authority had received so many requests for food preservation workshops from our communities across the state. And the Indian Health Board, our local Indian Health Board, they serve the tribes in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And again, that's 48 federally recognized, but again, there's hundreds of tribes. Where I'm at in Portland, Oregon, and Multnomah County, we are the 9th largest population of Native American, and that's because over 70% of Native Americans live in urban areas. And that's because during the Relocation Act, we were first sent away to reservations in the middle of nowhere, and then encouraged to go into urban areas. You'll have housing, education, all that kind of stuff. That didn't necessarily happen. That's another story. Yeah. So working with the Indian Health Board, they came, and because I work really closely with Indian Health Board, they came and said, hey, Danita, can you reach out to our community and do workshops across Oregon? And so I worked with my good friend Shoshone Wild Bill, who is Klamath, and so we started working with all of our tribes offering food preservation classes, not courses. That comes later. But of course, the reason that there's a need for this is because there is a long-standing systemic inequities for our Indigenous people. We don't have the same access to our universities. We don't have the same, and so there's a lot of barriers in getting this access to food preservation, education, and even courses. So this is, these are just a couple pictures from around the Pacific Northwest. Go back, no, the other way, sorry. Yeah, the other way. Yeah, so in the corner over here of the face, this is She Who Watches. And so it's a petroglyph of she oversees us and watches over us and takes care of us. And in some tribes, she's not so nice. The Multnomah Falls is absolute, back the other way. I see that. Multnomah Falls, amazing food, because we're always going out and gathering some amazing foods. In the bottom, Central Oregon, amazing roots and berries. And then on our coastline, and then in the middle, that's called Wizard Island, that's Crater Lake. So all these different places, they have different foods, right? Different areas, different tribes, different foods. And then, yeah, that's just us gathering and us at our powwow, dancing at powwow. Next, please. So the NAYA Garden is located in Portland, Oregon. NAYA is the Native American Youth and Family Center. And the garden here, it's incredible. So this is an ancient, where there was a school located here. And this is tribal land. And so the tribe actually got access, and now they own this property. And the garden originally was baseball fields. And so they have so far transformed one entire baseball field, and it's all food that then goes out to the community. When food goes out to the community, though, sometimes you gotta find additional ways to use it, because sometimes the things that are being grown there are not necessarily foods that you're familiar with. As food preservation goes, tanchi is an endangered corn species from the Choctaw people in Oklahoma. And so my friend Jenny Brixey is Choctaw. And again, we're in an urban area, we're not on reservation. And so the Choctaw people gifted the Nea Garden corn to grow. This corn grows like 18 feet high. And so it's so amazing. And so if you're away from your traditional homelands, having access to tanchi is incredible. And so what they did was they grew the corn. Choctaw people came and went and got to be around their homeland foods. This corn and the spotted cane basket bean, these were such important foods that our women would sew them when they knew they were being sent away. And they sewed them into the lining of their skirts to preserve them. And hundreds of years later, they're being grown in Portland, Oregon. You know, how cool is that? And so they made, so then with the tanchi, what they did was they grew it, they ground it, then we had ceremony around the corn, and then after that, then this was handed out first to the Choctaw people that are in the urban area, right? So then they could do something with their tanchi corn. And then on the garden here, we have Ozet's red Illicium garlic, also traditional foods. And so we're preserving these also, and it'll make sense later as it all comes back together. Next slide, please. So when we talk, I heard someone say earlier, you know, like that we've been preserving food forever. We say since time memorial. Since time immemorial is before the advent of time. What does that mean, right? Before then. And we've done, you know, we've smoked and we've air dried and wind dried and salted, and if anybody has ever gotten frozen food, that's from the Inuit people, right? Birdseye came up to Alaska and saw the Inuits pulling the fish out, and they immediately flash froze. And so he studied that and then took that back home and made $1 billion business on it. So when we talk about our traditional foods, I always say, you know, we're looking at food and ways of doing things that are in our DNA. It's who we are, right? And so I appreciate the food preservation programs, because a lot of times it's not that what we're doing was wrong necessarily, because when I went through the program like over 20 years ago and I was shown this is how you can tomatoes, I was like, oh no, that is not how my Atoy grandma does things. And you guys are wrong, and my grandma's right. And I had an amazing mentor, Glenda Hyde, and she was like, just stick with it. We're gonna figure this out, and then you won't be mad at me anymore. So I'm not mad at her anymore. Because our food has changed, right? When man ruins the earth, it ruins the soil, the water, the food, and everything changes. So as the acidity levels change in the foods around us, then we have to pivot and change and make sure that when we're making a safe product that we need to make a safe product, because they're not taking care of the planet. Next, please. So one of the things that I was able to do was to go around and work with our 9 tribes actually ate, because one, they had COVID and got sick, so they weren't able to do it. Plus our urban area, right? And so our tribal folks, they always step up and help, right? And so these are not the folks that we had in class. This is the community that supported me, because it's a lot to do a food preservation class by yourself. I do them, but it's a lot of work. And so this is our fermentation that we did. And so our kids, with the muscles, we also worked with high school students. And so our high school students would come to the university, and they'd maybe never done any kind of food preservation. So then what I would do is refrigerator pickles, right? Because you can actually use that ragu jar to make refrigerator pickles safely. It's the one thing you can do with food preservation, that you can use a reusable jar safely. And they love the heat, right? Who doesn't? Well, am I wrong? Does everybody like hot foods? Well then, Mark, we can't be friends. I love hot food. Oh,
I don't want you to feel left out at all.
Oh,
thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, so what we did was we were like, everybody pick whatever kind of vegetable you want. So they would pick the vegetables that they could use, and everybody just shoved in so many hot peppers and hot chilies. It was incredible. It was so hot, and some of them were so gross. But still, they had so much fun, and they learned a lot. So when they went back, they were like, we want to do more of this. We want more food preservation. And that's an area that we're moving into, is working with our high school students on food preservation. There's a tribe it's the Siletz people along the coast in Oregon, and they have a culinary food program, and they go all over the United States in food competitions, right? And they're like, why aren't we giving our kids additional ways to see their future? That's through food preservation, and then also working with our Food Innovation Center. That is, how do we make a business plan if we want to take the food from the Teltum Garden, that's the Siletz Tribal Garden, and turn that into a food business? Because now we're teaching our students how to make a plan, how to make a business plan. And so then it just becomes reciprocal, because then it's the next group of students, then the next group of students, like that. So pretty cool. And that handsome man on the far right at the bottom, that's my husband. 36 years, what? Next, please. So our foods go from, whether that is, and I'm just gonna say that, yes, this is canned salmon, and yes, it's at a farmer's market, but on and off reservation is very different. We have data sovereignty rights, meaning that any data that you collect, that's ours, that's not yours. And then we also have our food sovereignty rights, where tribal law then dictates what can and cannot be done on reservation. But if you go off reservation, and then like somebody mentioned before, but at the end of the day, we want our food safe, right? We're gonna be giving it to our family, to our elders, and our little ones. So we wanna make sure that our food is always safe. One of the amazing things that happened from this grant was, as I went around the state, we would do a class, and then like if I would come in and do a jam class with all of you, everybody went home with a water bath canner, because it's really hard to come in and do a food preservation class, talk to you about pressure canning salmon or tuna, making jams and jellies, when you can't replicate what I just did, right? So it's really important to be able to put those back, those types of products, with understanding how to use them, back in the hands of the community, because now they have a source of to help make them food resilient, because our communities are always in such a place of need. Thank you. I was trying to say a politically correct word. Trying to be nice. Trying to be nice here. Yeah. But again, going back to working with our little ones in Siletz, we have little kiddos coming in because, like I said, my grandma taught me how to can, right? So I was the one that like shoved the tomatoes in the jar. That was my job, shove them in the jar. And so our children are smart and resilient and amazing. And when we hand down these skills and stories to them, then there's going to be another little girl going, no way, that's not how my Grammy taught me how to do this. But then they'll stay the course and listen for the information. At the end of this, so I received $25,000 to work with all of our tribes, and the majority of the money went to the product that stayed, because some tribes said, we don't want everybody getting something. What we need is a grinder for our corn, or we need, a different type of grinder for apples and making cider and stuff, so they could do repetitive classes where then the community then would come in and they would do all of their stuff right there in a community way, because we're community folks. That's what we do. We gather, we talk stories, and make fun of each other. It's what we do, out of love. Next one, please. So this is our, this is through a NIFA grant. Culturally responsive food preservation education with tribal communities in Oregon. That's a lot. So one of the issues that we deal with is there are a lot of cultural and curricular misalignments between tribes and government and programming. And so we do the MFP program a little bit differently in our Native community. We still, we get together, we go over the information, but then it's not like a test, because the way our communities work is we talk to each other, and it's using a different type of popular education theory, where what we do is we gather as a group and we share knowledge as a group. By the time we've gone through the whole course, though, I know where each and every one of you have your strengths. We talk one-on-one. We figure out what are the things that you need to learn maybe more about in order to, so it's, yes, we need to know, like, this has to be water bath can, but it becomes a discussion. Why does this have to be water bath can? And then when we ask a story, then we ask a story question, like, if I come to your home and I see that my auntie is water bath canning spaghetti meat, what do I say to her? And like someone mentioned earlier, you don't mess with aunties and you don't mess with Grammys. You're not going to tell them anything different. So then what do you say? Because we love them and we want to protect them. But there's also a lot of cultural barriers if you are not from that community to tell me that I can't can this way. So then in our story forum, when we all talk stories with each other, that's where we come up with really good ideas. How would I say that to my auntie? How would I help her to make this safe so that she's safe and then the rest of the community is safe too? Next slide, please. So some of the things that we did was one of our foods is elderberries. They are delicious. I love elderberries. Not as much as choke cherries, but I do love elderberries. And so one of the things that had happened was we said we want to, because there's some foods that you cannot find on university websites that are going to give me a safe recipe for elderberries. So again, then going back, because we have an MOU with our tribes on data sovereignty and respecting their data's, our rights to data. So elderberries then were taken by one of the local gatherers. The local gatherer then took them to the university, handed them off in ceremony, and then the food scientists then figured out which of the elderberries were safe to can, how they needed to be canned safely, and then that information went back to the tribe. But because there's so many people that are using elderberries, the decision was made that they would make that available for wide dispersal, not just for tribal distribution. So when we're looking at our foods, a lot of times, you know, if you have a food and there's no recipe for it, we make it up as we go, you know, or we go back and say, that's how so-and-so did it, so I'm gonna do the same way. So then it becomes a problem, because is it safe? I don't know if it's safe, but I'll give it a shot. You know, and that's not the best way to be going about this. So we really wanted to support, again, tribal identity, tribal foods, and because you don't know the importance of a food. Like in the very first slide in the middle is a basket of stinging nettles, which is my personal favorite food ever. If you don't know that they're not a weed, you're gonna kill them, right? Because that's what people do. They kill dandelions. Dandelions are an incredible food source, but everybody doesn't want them in their yards, so they spray them with chemicals. But everything about a dandelion is so beautiful once you know how to use it. That's where chicory comes from, which for some people is their coffee. I don't understand that. But my grandma liked it, so it's good enough for me. Next page, please. This is Emma. She shared her salmon with us during the program. We, of course, did pressure canning, right? And so again, in this particular grant here, again, we're going back to, we couldn't work with all the tribes, so we worked with the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, we worked with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Round, and then we were in the urban area in Portland. And worked with, in Portland, all of our folks are farmers or had food businesses. And so it was kind of difficult getting to their schedules, because a farm doesn't wait, you know, a garden just doesn't wait at all. But what we did was we really changed how the curriculum was really pushed out, because we can't do something that supports tribes if it's not tribal led, if it's not indigenous led, because then we're going to miss out on information that is going to support tribes and tribal folks. And yeah, she's powered by my ancestors. It's a great t-shirt. I love that. Go ahead and to the next one. Oh, look at that, nettles again. So again, one of the really important things is like what you guys do here, like you get trained in an MFP program, and then you're out in community. So then you're able to support people in community or share knowledge in community when you see something that maybe someone might need help with, or and so that was really important to us, because usually, you know, at the university level, what's happened is the knowledge always stays like this, right? And we're not given enough knowledge to then be able to, oh, sorry. I told you, I'm a hand talker. This is hard for me. I gotta move. So again, nettles. These are incredible. So nettles grow around woods and stuff, and on the bottom they have these little tiny hairs. They're called trichomes, and if you stick your hand in there, your hand's gonna just come out welted and it's gonna burn and sting forever. Which you learn real quick when you're a kid. But I didn't, but you can use this food. All you have to do is dry it, right? Once you dry it, or you boil it a little bit, it deactivates the trichomes, and so now you're able to eat it. So we eat it like spinach, or the different times of years that of the year that you gather it. The stems can be used as cordage. So there's still so many viable uses for this plant. But when I moved from the reservation back to the Portland area, I looked for nettles that I would gather when I was younger, and they were gone. And when I asked the forest folks there, where's all the nettles? They let me know that they had gotten rid of them. They'd burned them and gotten rid of them. And I'm like, so you killed a food source for animals and for humans. Okay. So nettles, that upsets me. But one of the really, to me, important things that came out of this was the tribal consultations. So, you know, our tribes, they consult, you know, because we're a government to government, we're not bound by state law. Our tribes are bound by federal laws. And so when we would have, when we do a consultation with them, it used to be like people would come and tell us what we needed to do, and in order to qualify for different grants, you've got to do this. It's not that way anymore, and it's not going to go back, because now it's like, these are the things that we need. These are the, this is what's going to be helpful for us to continue our ways. So with tribal consultation, one of the really big things that happened was the working with our tribes and tribal leaders on an MOU to support the foods, because non-native people were going to be having access to these foods, or they were going to have then access to some of the knowledge that that our knowledge sharers hold. And so then there had to be a way that we can work through this, and because your knowledge is valuable, so is ours, but we wanted it to stay in community, if at all possible. And again, each tribe is different. You know, some tribes, they do want to share certain things, and other tribes, they do not. And so it's like a family, being respectful in all these different spaces. The curriculum, though, that was developed really has supported the tribes, as now they are, next slide please, in these 3 areas, because now what they're doing is they are now teaching in community, right? And so they're teaching fermentation classes and handing out the OSU recipes. This is how you do fermentation. Here's the website if you want to learn how to do a safe jelly or a safe jam. I appreciated all the numbers that Dr. Schwan shared earlier, because there's so much on the internet that is false, but when you type it into AI pulls everything up, not just truth, you know. So I've really appreciated everybody's conversations here today. So again, going back to what we, what are we doing here? We're making soup. We're making soup in the kitchen. Portland State University has an indigenous food kitchen, and so the foods then that are made there, they have like not like what you would think of as like a regular corn grinder that you put through a mill, but an old corn grinder. I cannot remember the name. Yeah, thank you. That is exactly what it's called. So again, we go back to using the popular education theory that is looking at the collective the knowledge in a collective, right? Because everyone here holds a piece of that knowledge, and as we work together, we come to the correct answer. You know, we could do a test and write down everything, which, by the way, we do. At the end, we do a test because we want to know where can you find in the MFP book the information, because you're going to be asked in the community, where do I have a recipe for this, or is there a recipe for that? And so in working in the way that we're doing is then now everybody then that now has a community certification, they're now the people that community go to. And then if they need help, they come to us if they need an answer that maybe they can't answer. And then they know they have to find it somewhere in that book, if at all possible. You know, what I say a lot of times is that it's just a difference in language, right? In academia, we say epistemologies, right? And then it's like, you mean, how do I know what I know? Right? So it's really about the language that we're using. It's not like we're dumb and don't understand it, it's just a different language, right? Once we learn the language and the terminology, well, we can use that terminology too, but we have to get through some of the barriers to begin with. Next, please. And so this is in Grand Ronde, Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde. The person on the right here, this is Francine Ambrose, and she takes care of the Mekmek Iskum, which is the food pantry in Grand Ronde. And so she is one of the people that was trained through using this curriculum. And then they went out into the community and are teaching people, this is how you, for this training here, she was talking about dehydrating food. We do a lot of freeze drying. Freeze drying is really a big thing in our communities. We know they're expensive. We know freeze dryers are expensive, but we were also left out of the first go round of the COVID money. So as tribes are getting more freeze dryers, it's because we want to make sure that there's food, right? How long is it going to stay? You know, it's a much longer shelf stability for freeze drying. And again, there's, you know, for home freeze dryers, there's still a lot of stuff we don't know, right? Or commercial freeze drying is different than home freeze drying, because the people that are commercially drying, they have PhDs, they know, you know, they figured out how this machine works, and now they created this machine. And so when we're doing this at home, I'm like, I'm gonna freeze my peaches, and then I'm gonna throw them in the freeze dryer, and let's hope that they go well. And they have, by the way. So then in our, so then at the end, we had over 34 community members that had joined, but 29 had gone through and got the full certification. And at the end, like our questions were very similar to some of the questions that are in the regular MFP course. You know, can this be? Is it best if this is pressure canned, water bath canned, or can you not do either one? You know, and again, but that came down to talking stories and figuring out, like, if somebody didn't know, well, why can't we do this? Then we would go back into the book and find the answer, and then we would discuss it until it was well understood in a general consensus that this is the answer, right? And sometimes that takes longer. So this says 40 hours in my group. We had like 5-6 hour things each time. It was long. But who doesn't love being around community? Next, please. one of the things that, so not just in Grand Ronde, but in the Portland area, and then also Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, going back and working in the community, there's a lot of requests for additional classes because the community likes to be taught by the community, because here this is Lucas Angus, Seven Waters Canoe family. So he's a traditional fisherman. He has the canoe family journeys that they do, and then he came in and was showing how to fillet fish, right? And our tribes are all different. Some of us are water tribes, some of us are not water tribes. So we don't do a lot of fishing, right? So it's always nice to see somebody that has this skill, because filleting fish is a skill. And again, going back to sharing safe food preservation methods, but using language that the community understands also. Next, please. So we also did an anonymous survey, because that's when I really want to know what you actually think, because if we don't do anonymous surveys through Qualtrics, then then you're, it's important to have anonymity to say, hey, I like this, or this was really dumb. Some of the feedback that we also got was that some of the classes were not long enough, and especially around smoking. People really wanted more information around smoking, and that's because there's so many different types of smokers. There's like those little chiefs and big chiefs smokers. Then there's like traditional smoking, and electric smokers and propane smokers, and so we know that we got to do a lot more around smoking, especially in our community, because everything gets smoked, right? You can smoke everything, cheese, and it's all delicious. I think it's delicious. If you've never had smoked cheese, oh my gosh, y'all got to eat some smoked cheese. Well, that's legal in Oregon now, just so you know. That's Oregon. That's another presentation. Pros and cons. But just so again, I go back to whatever we're doing. It's so good to have anonymous surveys. Next, please. So then, really, what's next, right? We know we need to modify the curriculum because of the input that we received from the community. There's things that we need to do to make them longer. There's additional questions that we need to ask that are cultural sticking points, right? That people are like, we're not budging on this. So then where, for example, if you are gifted a food and you know that food's not safe, there are still some people out of respect that are going to eat that food, and then the thinking is that that it'll be okay. And so those are baby steps, right? You got to do baby steps through that, because I want you to respect my culture, I will respect yours. So you got to help me walk through this for sure. And then also definitely adding additional foods. So when our foods are being checked, like maybe our roots or different berries, what is the safest thing? Because if there's not a recipe, again, you're just winging it. And so that's when we really turn to places like the National Center for Home Food Preserving, to our food scientists. Help us find a recipe that's going to be safe, that we can give to the community, so then that we're all safe. And next one, please. So, okay. So one of the other things that we've done is we have food preservation libraries around the area. So if you want to rent something, you might not have a piece of equipment, but you can go to one of the food preservation libraries. It's loaned out We don't rent them, we loan them. And then in order to say get a canner, you also need to know how it works. So we go through a process making sure that you know how to use the canner and such. And then we have like papers on this is how they're returned, and you just use it till you need it. And so far it's been pretty good in the community. And if somebody never brings something back, I just figure you needed it more than I did. Next, please. Those are nice knives. So on our project team, Dr. Jared Hibbert Swanson, I give full props to Jared. I've been at Oregon State for over 20 years, and I've been asking for a long time, can we please get more food preservation into our community? Our tribes are asking for it, please, and then can you please help get some recipes out there? Can you please help us in these different areas? And then Jared came along about 5 years ago, and he was like, hey, how come we're not working with the tribes? And I'm like, hiya, no kidding, why not? Because you're not gonna get the support if you don't have allies. And so having allies that are not part of Indian country, that support the way that we're wanting to move forward. We still want a safe product. We want to feed our elders. We're responsible for that. Having someone like Jared here that helps us walk through it and then make these different connections to different people, then he brings them to us, and then we learn more information. And then that information then goes out into our community, and then it just trickles down. And so this is baby Grogu, not baby Yoda, just so you all know.
Is it tribal member?
Absolutely different tribe for sure. But and then the food scientist that we use is her name is Joy Waite Kusik. And so again, these are people that are not from our community, but they respect our beliefs and respect the MOU between the university and the tribes. And as that continues, then we're gonna see more of our foods and more sharing, because when the tribe starts trusting these land-grant universities that took our land for the land-grant universities, that's healing. Because in a lot of our treaty rights, the land-grant universities were supposed to support us and help us through all these different things. But that is me. Miigwech. Miigwech in Ojibwe is thank you. Chi miigwech is big thank you. So I say chi miigwech and thank you. And I think there's one more. Yeah.